Hey everyone, welcome to Judging for the Win. I'm Dave, and this is my daily ruling. Today's question was suggested by a viewer, thanks to Breno Silva for this one. Amy attacks with Child of Night, while her opponent controls Reign of Gore. What happens? Alright, so the first impulse that a lot of you probably had was to hit the back button and check on the thumbnail. Did I really grade this one as a 4-star question? There's gotta be some mistake here, right? Well, I promise you, there's a lot more going on to this question than you might see at first glance. But the point that I want to make is actually very subtle, so in order to build up to it, I'm going to start with a couple of easier examples first. Amy plays Nourish, while her opponent controls Reign of Gore. What happens? Alright, so this one actually is an easy example. Whenever a spell is resolving, you do some instructions that are based on what the text of the spell says. In this case, the instruction is for you to gain 6 life. However, because Reign of Gore is in play, it'll see that a spell is instructing you to gain 6 life, and that would be a spell causing you to gain life, which means that instead you would lose that much life. Okay, pretty easy so far. Let's go up to the next level of difficulty. Amy attacks with the Grizzly Bears, which is enchanted by Spirit Link, while her opponent controls Reign of Gore. What happens? Alright, so in this case, we have a very similar situation. The Spirit Link has a triggered ability on it, and the triggered ability works the exact same way as the spell. Anytime the triggered ability is going to resolve, you're going to do some instructions based on what the text of that ability is. So in this case, you're going to be gaining that much life, and Reign of Gore sees you are gaining life because of an ability, and you're going to instead lose that much life. Alright, now we're ready for the main event. How would this work if you are attacking with a creature with lifelink? Now, at first glance, it seems like this should be a pretty open and shut case, right? I mean, lifelink is an ability, the ability is causing you to gain life, so what's the problem here? Well, if you take a look at the comprehensive rules definition for lifelink, you'll see that it doesn't quite match up exactly with what the first two examples were doing. Rather than lifelink being an ability that has some instructions that you have to perform, and the instruction being that you gain some life, lifelink actually changes what happens in the game when you damage something. And that's kind of a weird situation to be in if you're looking for a spell or ability to cause you to gain life. So what's actually happening here is the Child of Night has some special properties associated with its damage, and the additional effect of its damage is for the controller of that damage to gain some life. Now, that is not a spell or ability causing you to gain life. Sure, the reason that you're gaining life is because the Child of Night has lifelink, and that is an ability. However, what's actually causing you to gain life, the most direct cause of it, is the fact that you're dealing damage. It just so happens that an ability is changing the rules of the game so that one of the results of dealing damage is going to involve some life gain. That's pretty cool and all, but it doesn't exactly match what the Reign of Gore's ability is looking for. And so as a result, you will not have the ability of Reign of Gore affect this event, and you'll gain the life just like normal. There's one more wrinkle that I wanted to put out here, and that would be how Reign of Gore interacts with replacement effects. Now, replacement effects have a pretty similar functionality to the way lifelink worked in the previous example. Rather than having you gain the life themselves, the replacement effect just changes the rules of the game so that if you are following some other instruction, the other instruction has a result that includes you gaining life. Again, the replacement effect isn't causing you to gain life, the original effect is. However, the replacement effect is just replacing the thing that the original effect was going to do with something else, and if that something else happens to gain life, well, you may or may not be in for Reign of Gore working or not working in this situation. Let me show you exactly what I mean with another example. Nick controls Reign of Gore, and Amy controls Words of Worship. She uses Words of Worship's ability and then plays Gitaxian Probe. What happens? To answer this question, we're going to need to take a look at exactly how the replacement effect is going to function. Words of Worship has a replacement effect that changes how the game is going to interpret the next time Amy wants to draw a card. And it's going to replace that with her gaining some life. So, the next time she draws a card is going to be during the resolution of Gitaxian Probe. With the Gitaxian Probe, there's an instruction that the spell has that says you want to draw a card. Now, Words of Worship is going to replace that drawing a card with Amy gaining 5 life. But the thing that's causing her to do that is still going to be the resolving Gitaxian Probe. That means that when Reign of Gore is looking at this event, it's going to see that a spell or ability, in this case Gitaxian Probe, is causing Amy to gain some life, and it's going to give a big note to that one. Now, let's take a look at another very similar example and see how it would be a little bit different in the results. Amy activates Words of Worship during her upkeep and then goes to draw a card for her turn, while Nick controls Reign of Gore. What happens? So, in this case, it's just like with the lifelink example. Even though the Words of Worship is the thing that's causing Amy to have the instruction modified to become something that involves life gain, the Words of Worship isn't in fact causing Amy to gain life. Rather, what's happening is there's a turn-based action in the game that makes Amy draw a card, and Words of Worship is modifying what happens as a result of this turn-based action in order to include some life gain. Reign of Gore is not going to kick in here, and that's because it only cares if a spell or ability Amy controls is going to cause her to gain life. In this case, there's a turn-based action that's causing Amy to gain life. And the fact that an ability Amy controls resulted in that turn-based action being modified to include some life gain, well, that's immaterial. The game doesn't care about that because that's not the actual thing that's causing her to gain life. The thing that's causing her to gain life is the turn-based action, and therefore Reign of Gore cannot affect this event. Well, that was a really trippy example, and my head kind of hurts from thinking about all of those types of really fine distinctions a little bit too much. Hopefully these explanations were helpful, and everybody is able to understand exactly what types of situations this would or would not apply in. But that's all I have for you today. How did you do? Join me again tomorrow for another daily ruling, but until then, I hope you have a great day.